Anton, I understand you were on Viva Palestina.
Yes, I was.
When did that go and what happened?
We left on the 5th of December and arrived there on the 6th of January. And of course, you know, it's a long story. We traveled all the way overland via Turkey into Syria, into Jordan.
When you say we, how many people, how many trucks?
Well, actually, we were, when we started from England, it was only 78 trucks, 78 ambulances. And then, of course, you know, we had a few additions in Germany, we had a few additions in France, we had a few additions in Belgium, and a couple of them in Italy. And of course, when we came into Turkey, we were joined by İHA, which is the human rights organization, the Foundation for Human Rights and Human Freedoms, IHH. It goes by the initials IHH, but
we're not leaving until the war ends.
But pronounced İHA. Okay, it's a great organization. They operate in about 180 countries, so they promised to join us with 78 vehicles, which they added on. So we had 78 vehicles, which included roughly about 40-odd ambulances. No, about 30 ambulances, and the rest were trucks, including 2 big pickup trucks, which carried about 20 tons of medical equipment, the 18-wheelers.
And so so what was the path then that you took?
Well, it'll show you over here.
All right, why don't you turn around and get a picture of it? All right.
Yeah, so it's actually through Brussels, London, Brussels, down into Luxembourg,
Come over here for the sun.
Yeah, Luxembourg to through Austria to Italy, right down to what do you call Milan to down to the seaport of, I cannot remember the name. Then into Greece, through the islands to Thessaloniki, over the mountains into Turkey to Istanbul to Ankara to Konya to Adana to Gaziantep to Aleppo to...
Right, we're now in Syria. Okay.
We are now in Syria. Aleppo, of course, you know, the first major city, an ancient city. And then down to Damascus, where we were actually entertained. I mean, we were mobbed all the way by the Turks. They were fabulous. Their support was just amazing. By the time we reached the Syrian border, we must have had about 460 people and about 180-odd trucks, plus including the ambulances. Then we got down to Damascus, and in Damascus we were actually greeted by the Syrian government. We had no problems with visas or anything. We didn't pay a penny for any of these places. We were greeted with open arms. Food was provided, accommodations were provided. In fact, we got to the finest hotel in Damascus, which was given to us by the government. So all 400 and almost 500 people were housed there. And we were there for about 2 days before we moved down to Amman in Jordan. And then from Amman, we were stopped in Amman by the Jordanian police. And they tried to divert us away from the city, etc. But we held our ground, and we finally decided to rush them, in the sense, block them, block the roads. So we basically blocked the roads. We blocked the roads, and then when we blocked the roads, our trucks came up right alongside and blocked the exits and demanded that we be released. And the Jordanian police had to negotiate with us. And in Aqaba, we were told by Hosni Mubarak that we were not going to be allowed to come through.
The ruler of Egypt.
The ruler of the despot from Egypt, you know. But of course he said, you're not going to be permitted to come through the Sinai. So we stayed there and we resisted and negotiated for about 4.5 days. Finally, we had to give in. They said, go back to Latakia in Syria. So we came right back.
How far was that approximately to go back to Syria?
480 kilometers, you know, so that entailed the whole, we did that in, well, actually we stopped again in Damascus at the same hotel. The Syrian government again entertained us and put us up. And then 2 days later we went to Latakia, and we were housed in a Palestinian refugee camp in Latakia, where a lot of us came down with a lot of sicknesses, unfortunately. Yeah, the conditions are just terrible. We were right by the Mediterranean. And of course, you know, we got good food, they looked after us, but the toilet conditions were, of course, you know, needless to say, really bad with 500. By that time, we were joined by the Jordanian guys and by Syrians. So the whole convoy rose to a number of 518, out of which, and we had 223 vehicles in the convoy by which time. So then the Egyptians refused to allow us to come across to El Arish on the ferry. And they were delaying us. So for 4 days we were held up in Latakia. And finally the Turkish government sent us this massive ferry, huge ferry. And they said, we'll take care of no expenses, nothing at all. They paid for everything. They paid over $2 million for not just the ferry, which just included the vehicles, but then they said you can't get on the Israelis would not allow us to get on the ferries, period. So now we were pressured by the Egyptians on one side, by the Israelis, of course, who were pulling the strings. I mean, the Egyptians are real puppets. They were the real puppets in this whole story. So the Turks decided to send 3 planes for us. So we were evacuated from Latakia, from Tarsus, which is one of the major ancient cities.
Again in Syria.
In Syria. So the Syrian government provided us with bus transportation after the vehicles were loaded onto the ferry, and we were brought down to Tarsus. And in Tarsus, of course, the Turks sent us the planes. Then we were brought into El Arish, and we were actually...
So now you're El Arish, Egypt.
El Arish in Egypt, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm just taking it for granted. Everybody knows what it is. But anyway, yeah, it's El Arish in Egypt, which is actually the final border town before Rafah crossing. So we got into El Arish, and in El Arish, the Egyptian authorities really made us pay. They kept us locked up in the immigration, in the airport for roughly 13 hours. Okay, and we really had to kind of, actually it was a real, in a sense, a riot in a sense, but we had to bang desks, and we had to do all kinds of things in confrontation. We were surrounded by Egyptian police, riot police. Finally they said, okay, we'll let you go, because we were released at about 3:30 in the morning, and then we were woken up at 6 o'clock by the Egyptian police slamming on our doors, because we had to buy our own board for the night. And before we could even have breakfast, we were shipped to El Arish port, the port of El Arish, where we had all the vehicles lined up. And now we were faced by over 2,000 riot police, Egyptian riot police, who brought stone throwers. And they started, after 2 days of negotiations in the port with George Galloway and crowd, they brought the stone throwers, and all of a sudden, I mean
What is a stone thrower? Is it a machine or people?
It's a machine. No, it's a machine which can, all what they do is throw these big rocks, and it's amazing how the police was so well organized, because the police had brought all these stones and loaded it up in 5 lumps. And what they started doing was loading this up and shooting this. And this was, oh my God, it was just incredible. They broke